Hello and welcome to another edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on today's show, well, we haven't talked about the old GT350 Mustang in a time, but a little situation has come out over the past several days. Some early adopters of this machine have actually had a little bit of problem and now are suing the Ford Motor Company in a class action lawsuit. And it all revolves around these folks taking their vehicles to have a little track day fun at a local racetrack, then having problems after only a handful of laps. The vehicle's rear differential or transmission would actually overheat, or the both of them would overheat, throwing a code and launching the vehicle into limp mode, allowing them to limp back to the pit area and to wait for the vehicle to cool down before they could go out and pound around the track again, meaning their track day fun would be cut short very, very quickly. Now, this could be easily rectified if these folks had bought the track pack option, which came with not only a transmission cooler, but a differential cooler. Well, the situation turns out is this, because the Ford Motor Company later in the GT350 life cycle made the transmission and the diff cooler standard equipment on all GT350s moving forward. Thus, the lawsuit exists because these folks are claiming, hey, Ford Motor Company knew that there was a problem with this deal and just kind of made the standard equipment instead of retrofitting those parts to our vehicles, those of us that bought the technology package option. So I'm assuming the lawsuit is just strictly going to be over parts. It may be a little bit over some money on the side too, so we'll have to wait and see on those fronts. We'll keep you in tune of what we hear. Next up on the list, another week goes by and another piece of the puzzle for the Hellcat Demon, this drag race street car monster that the folks over at SRT and FCA and Dodge are putting together ahead of the April New York Auto Show. Now, this particular new video and new lineup of goodies that we're going to talk about all revolves around an option called the Transbreak. Now, this is a deal that's inside the transmission where actually using one of the shifter paddles behind the steering wheel, you can activate this system that will actually lock the transmission into reverse and first gear at the same time. Meaning if you put the vehicle into the stage beams on the old drag strip, you can put this line lock feature, which starts as far as the thing in track mode and launch mode, and it will lock the vehicle in position, meaning the car won't roll fore or aft. Means you can take your foot off the brake pedal and just focus on stomping down on the loud pedal. Now, this is an old drag racing trip from way, way back in the day, and this not only locks this transmission reversed and first, but also puts a preload onto all the driveline pieces heading backwards. That meaning the transmission itself, the rear driveline, the center differential, or I should say the rear differential, and the half shafts going to the wheels. Meaning you won't get that great big bang. Remember in the old days, if you're a person of a certain age, you may remember doing neutral drops, bringing up the revs in neutral and slamming it down into drive or first gear, and the vehicle smacks as the old drive line, all the slack gets ripped out of the transmission and the drive shaft and the rear end of the vehicle. Now, this is a situation, and not only is it going to take a lot of that slack out, which means this vehicle is going to launch very efficiently, but it's also going to allow the vehicle's engine to spool up a little bit. The vehicle's going to launch at 2,350 RPMs. SRT is claiming that through something that we talked about earlier in later videos, where we talked about this whole bypass valve on the supercharger means they're going to be able to build up 150% greater boost level and 120% greater torque at launch. Now, I'm assuming that RPM that they actually launch at can be adjusted depending on track conditions as well. Now, the paddle shifts has got me thinking too, because I was often thinking about this vehicle with the amount of power it was going to have, that they may go with a drag race style transmission or a high performance transmission, that being a 2-speed power glide, often used in a lot of automatic transmission drag racing vehicles and a lot of high performance vehicles all over the planet. When built properly, it's dang near bulletproof, but with those paddle shifts, this thing may still have that 8-speed ZF gearbox. It could also have the 6-speed automatic gearbox that came in old Challengers back in the day, with just the Hemi or the SRT Hemis in the vehicles before the old Hellcat version. So this is all a situation that's kind of interesting. Also, it's not going to have, or at least this Transbreak situation is not like the line lock situation. Remember we talked about the line lock in the Ford Mustang, allows you to lock the front wheels of the vehicles and spin the rear tires. Still assuming that the Demon will probably have a line lock feature, but it won't be used for launching the machine itself. So again, another piece of the puzzle of this machine moving forward, so we'll have to wait and see what SRT is going to have up their sleeve for the next video ahead of its April New York Auto Show launch. There's also another little piece of the puzzle too, which is more cryptic messages on the back of the machine involving the license plate. The license plate is now changed. It has 8.3 plus 317 equals 534. So it'll be interesting to hear at the launch of this vehicle what all these weirdo messages actually did mean. And last up on the list, we talked about this vehicle in the past. The folks over at NIO built this all-electric hypercar called the EP9. This vehicle has a lot of power, 1,341 horsepower to be exact, and an eye-watering 4,671 pounds-feet of torque. 0 to 60 comes in just 2.7 seconds with a top speed of 195 miles an hour. Well, last October, they took this thing to the Nürburgring Nordschleife loop and dang near demolished the overall lap record for production vehicles and did whoop the heck out of the EV lap record around the old Nordschleife loop by 15 seconds. This vehicle did a lap of 7 minutes, 5.12 seconds. This beat a lot of supercars, but definitely beat that EV record. The trick of this deal is NIO is claiming that this vehicle wasn't at 100%. They actually detuned it a tad bit for the track conditions on that October day when they actually pulled off this lap record. The other thing I thought was interesting, and you can check out the video, it's up on the Facebook page as we speak, is the thing makes a pretty good noise for not having an actual internal combustion engine. I always thought the biggest problem with an EV would be you don't have that visceral sound, but this thing actually makes a pretty good noise as it's pounding around the old Nordschleife loop. It's a pretty neat piece of kit. It'll be interesting to see if they actually take this vehicle back on a day that's more suited for that 100% power to maybe take on the overall lap record. And that's all there was that I thought was worth talking about for this edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Don't forget to like us over on the Facebook page. Links down in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can do so at any time and get the first dibs in the brand new shows as soon as they come out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.